Hello, and thank you for watching my Week 3 discussion board for MPA 545. An overview of my presentation, I'm first going to talk about the Landsberger article and then move on to the article that I found that referenced Landsberger, which is Honeyman. In our text, Eisenhower and Spangel discussed core values and principles of a mediator and cited Landsberger's study on characteristics of mediators in labor disputes. And Landsberger's study was to determine whether psychological tests had the ability of measuring traits that were more desirable for mediators. It also aimed to create a test that one could take to determine if they would be a good candidate for a mediator as well. And that report, journal is called the Final Report on Research Project in Mediation. And during the study of this journal, and cited in our text, Landsberger identified characteristics which included some of those Eisenhart and Spangel identified, but in addition to those, these 5 characteristics as well, which is an appropriate sense of humor, the ability to act unobtrusively in conflict, the ability to create the perception of being with disputing parties and being concerned about their well-being, persistence and patience, and specific knowledge about the subject area in which they're mediating. And what I found interesting was that in my next slide, I'm going to discuss a journal article that I found that cited Landsberger, includes a lot of these and also some of the ones that Eisenhart and Spangel discussed too, and summarize them fairly nicely. So I'll get into that slide. So that journal article is by Christopher Honeyman, and he did this study in 1988, and it's called The 5 Elements of Mediation. And it is about a study that was conducted regarding the profession of mediation, again, focusing on labor disputes, as Landsberger did, and seeing if they can identify specific characteristics a mediator must have a solid understanding of and have the ability to employ when needed to be a successful mediator. So very similar to Landsberger. This study was not as scientific as Landsberger's though, so it was a little easier to comprehend, I'll say. But the study also looked at how one could be effectively trained in the profession using the found characteristics, and also being able to, for companies to select the right person during recruitment for a mediator. And what they found was that there were, in fact, 5 characteristics that a mediator must possess to be able to tap into to be successful. The first one is investigation. And what this is when mediators engage in intensive investigations of the facts behind the dispute early in the case. And this, in most part, was done through questioning spokespersons and other team members in a caucus. During the investigation, the mediator would performing kind of 2 functions at once, and that's obtaining the hard information, sometimes information that a party did not want to give, and then also demonstrating to the same party some potential holes in their point of view. The second one was empathy, and very similar to what was discussed in our text is the act of, and Landsberger, is the act of mediators taking various steps to establish empathy with the disputants. And these tended to occur at the same time during the investigation attempts because during that investigation, it can appear hostile or negative to the party involved. So it was very important to show that empathy during that time. Mediators also needed to show themselves to be willing to hear and discuss matters of concern to the parties involved, parties and individual team members, which may not necessarily be relevant to this group, but to try to show that empathy with them. In addition, it's also in the body language as well of how the mediator conducts themselves as a way of showing empathy. The third one is persuasion, and this is the act of attempting to obtain concessions early at a relatively low level, and then as the discussions progress, those typically rose in intensity during each evaluation. Invention was the fourth one, and this is the act of attempting to create a solution to an issue, or more like a series of proposed solutions. And these are generally reserved until after the mediator has proven to both parties that they are extremely knowledgeable about both parties' situations. And if a mediator attempts to invent a solution or solutions without the parties believing that they fully understand, then that's obviously going to fail, and that's not going to work. So there's also a timing aspect to that invention piece. The last one is distraction, and the act of attempting some kind of relief or tension when necessary, like a joke, in order to keep the parties from really assuming an outcome, which can kind of sour the atmosphere and really make a settlement more difficult. So these were the 5 characteristics that they identified, and the mediators didn't have to be experts in all 5 of these characteristics. They just had to show some proficient ability to employ them when needed. And the article cited Landsberger when it came to discussing that. And so when it came to discussing the mediator's levels of competence, it discussed that during the evaluations of the study, each mediator had different strengths when it came to employing these characteristics. However, again, as I mentioned, not all of them were experts, but they did show some competency when employing them. And Landsberger referenced something similar when he discussed his halo effect, in which a mediator has a strong ability in one characteristic, and that ability, that strength in that ability could actually carry them over where they were lacking in other characteristics. So that was interesting. It was a nice way to tie both of these articles together. But that concludes my presentation today. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to watching yours.